In English, we have been looking at the differences between writing a letter and writing a diary. There are definitely some similarities between these two types of writing, but there are also some differences. So in today's home learning, we are going to be thinking about what the similarities are and what the differences are. Before you go on to the next slide, have a think. Do you know anything that is the same about writing a diary and writing a letter? Let's start by looking at the features of a letter. The letters that we are going to be writing are from an evacuee child home to their parents. So it is going to be written quite formally, but obviously we are writing to someone that we love and we care about, so there will be some informalities as well. Whenever you write a letter, you need to always make sure that you have the sender's address at the top. This is the address of yourself, so this will be the address of the new home that you are living in after you have been evacuated. You also then need to have the address of the recipient. The recipient will be the address of your parents living in London where you left them. You always need to start a letter with a greeting. This is normally quite a formal greeting. It could be to someone you don't know and you could refer to them as sir or madam, or it could be to someone you do know, such as a mum or a dad. A letter is always written with quite formal language. Even if you are writing to someone you love, you will always try to use formal language whenever possible. And to sign a letter off correctly, you will choose to use either yours faithfully or yours sincerely at the end, depending on whether you are writing to someone you know or someone you do not know. Now let's look at what it's like to write a diary. A diary will always start with a Dear Diary opener. This is a really clear opener to show that we are clearly writing a diary in this case. A diary will often be written with chatty or informal language because the only person who essentially will be reading your diary is yourself. Therefore, you don't have to make sure that you are using formal language. You can use nicknames, you can use informal language because you are writing to yourself. It is a private piece of writing. As you're writing to yourself, you will also always be writing in the first person using I, me, or my. You can write in the first person for a letter, or you can also write for the first person in, you can also write in the second person for a letter. So there are different choices about when you write a letter, but you always use the first person when you're writing a diary. So that's why that's in there on the right-hand side. The other thing that's really important when you're writing a diary is that you write them in chronological order. So if you're telling yourself about your day, you will be writing it from the moment you wake up to the moment that you are writing your diary now, and it will be in chronological order from the first thing that happened in the day to the last thing. Letters aren't always like that. You can write them chronologically, but you can also organise them in a different way if you choose to. And as we discussed earlier, you can see that there are similarities between writing a letter and writing a diary. Both of these types of writing will be written in the past tense because you are referring to things that have already happened. In a letter, you may occasionally ask the recipient how they are, what's going on in their life, which would obviously be in the present tense, but for the majority, both of these pieces of writing would be written in the past tense. They would both be organised into paragraphs. Obviously, a diary will be organised into chronological paragraphs. A letter's paragraphs may be organised differently, but both of them will have thought that is put into how the paragraphs are organised. And both of these pieces of writing will refer to the person who is writing its thoughts and feelings. If you are writing a letter home to your parents when you've been evacuated, you will obviously be telling them how you're feeling, what's going on with you. And if you're writing a diary entry, this is what diaries are mainly used for. They are used for those people to put their feelings somewhere because it makes them feel better. In maths this week, we have been thinking about ordering and comparing bigger numbers up to 1 million. In your homework this week, you are going to be comparing different numbers and thinking about what is similar about them, what is different, and deciding which ones are larger and which ones are smaller. I've got 3 pairs of numbers here, and I am going to decide which symbol to place in the centre of them to compare them. As you can see, for each set of numbers, there are digits that are definitely the same, but there are digits that are different. So I'm going to show you how I made my decision of which one was larger and which one was smaller. My first pair of numbers are 345,982 and 345,736. Now I can clearly see that both of these numbers have the same hundreds of thousands, the same tens of thousands, and the same thousands. However, when I get to the hundreds column, the number on the left-hand side has more hundreds. It has 9 hundreds, and the number on the right has 7 hundreds. Therefore, I can see that 345,982 is the larger number. My next pair of numbers is 623,876 and 627,445. Again, my hundreds of thousands are the same, they both have 6. They both have 2 tens of thousands. However, one number has 3 thousands and one number has 7 thousands in the thousands column. Therefore, 627,445 is my larger number. And finally, I have two quite large numbers. I've got 2,673,800 and 2,679,100. Okay. Now, again, they both have the same millions. I move on to the next column. They both have the same 100,000s. They both have the same tens of thousands, but one number has more thousands. I can clearly see that 2,679,000 is the larger number. So remember, when you are ordering numbers, you start with the largest column and then you move along until you can clearly see which number is the largest.